Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for us to get into the newspapers. At least we have a few today, and we're on a bit of a newspaper diet. Is because the newspapers are still coming back to life post the festivities. But before I introduce my guest, before I bring him in, we all know this segment is always brought to us courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Now, how about starting the year on a healthy note? If you've not been getting yourself checked, it's like using your car all the time without checking on your brakes, without checking on your spark plugs, without checking on your engine oil, without checking on your whatever, lubricants, among others. If you don't, someday you could be moving with your car and it simply comes to a halt, a grinding halt. It's the same way our bodies are. And that is why regular checkups or maintenance in terms of the cars is what we all ought to stick to. And that is why I'm proffering for you this morning Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. I always say this. I'm coming to know a number of people, and it's common with women. We often take it for granted, but just as with eyesight, practically everybody has eye problems. It may not develop to the point where you need glasses like I do. These are not just for fashion. They actually they are medicated, okay? Same way with women, practically all of you may have the tendency of developing fibroids or may develop them. They may just not develop to the point where they become a problem or you may need surgery. So why risk it? If you're a woman as well, fertility screening, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic for free. And here's where you can locate them. Here in the crowd, they are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji Estate. There's Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Siama and Zima. If you'd like to reach them on phone, these are the numbers. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and joining us, the NDC's parliamentary candidate for South Toll, Maxwell Lukuto, is our guest. Max, good morning and Happy New Year.
Good morning, many happy returns. I sent you a message, I called you, you never responded. I guess you were so busy.
You sent me a message and called me?
Yes.
When was this?
Oh, during the youth time. I realized you were busily enjoying yourself, so.
I don't know about busily enjoying myself, but I've had a few people say, though, now that you mentioned, that they called me when I saw no call. Honestly, I've had a handful of people say they tried reaching me. I've not seen your message, but a call, I don't know whether I got. A few people said they had called me when, in fact, I had received no call. So I don't know whether it was network challenges, but I'll be sure to get back to you now that you've mentioned it, at least on the message. I got a ton of messages during the festivities. So my sincere apologies. Fachame, why?
You're a big man, so it's understandable.
Oh, please. I always try to respond to my messages, but sometimes it's just too many. Anyway, good to have you. My sincere apologies for that. Good to have you on board. Happy New Year. I hope the year has started well from your end. Are you in your constituency?
Yeah, I was in Accra on Sunday and Monday for a series of engagement with party stalwarts. I'm back to the constituency late last night, and I woke up this morning in my constituency. And all seems well. Party activities, yes, we are expecting GM on Thursday in the constituency. He will be passing through. That will be the first point of call in the water region. From here, he will be going to Tegbi, to Aplau, to Joje. That's the first day. And the second day, we will have other engagement in Ho and Gogwe. It's all about the 24-hour economy that he's bringing on board. And I think that the fever is catching up, and so everybody should come on board. Let's support John Dramani Mahama for the 2024 December 7th election. Next year, by this time, he would have been sworn in as the president of Ghana, and that's what most Ghanaians are looking out for. A lot of research and this thing has proven that he's actually on the path to winning. The last one was about 53%, and that's a good one. And so we pray and hope that the understanding and the fever catches up with all of us, and we make sure that we make him the next president of Ghana.
That is also interesting because I think on the 7th day of this month, I saw a flyer from the Baumia camp suggesting that For them, it was 1 year to the swearing in of Dr. Bawumia as president of Ghana. It's interesting how both sides are playing it, but the voters in the end will determine who becomes president. I heard, on Constitution Day when Mr. President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo addressed the country, he was speaking about free and fair elections and that whoever lost should concede to whoever won. One thing that was of interest to me, he made mention of the fact that the former president, John Dramani Mahama, who is contesting in this election, on a jovial note, had still not conceded to him in the past election. Of course, it boils down to, again, whether the aggrieved party who went to court actually felt that he had lost the election, though the court ruled that the NDC did not have sufficient grounds to claim the election had been compromised in any way. But with all that tone, how does that make your end feel about the Electoral Commission and some of the latest developments? I don't know what their position is currently, because the indelible ink matter that we've spoken about, I believe, before, that it can only add to the layer of protection when it comes to our voting cycle, among other bits. And is the NDC going back to IPAC? What responses can you give me on that? How much confidence does the NDC have in the Electoral Commission?
Yeah, sure. We are going back to IPAC. We are not too confident about who they are based on what we have known.
Maxwell, I think I'm struggling to hear you a bit. I think we'll try our volume here in the studio to find out whether it's any better. So let's start this again. Please go ahead.
All right. So are you good? Are you okay?
It's better, much better. Thank you.
It's better. Okay. So like I'm saying, they are posturing from the past up to now does not give us any confidence in who they are. The EC chair has made herself an appendage, and then like they together with Bosman and other people show themselves as card-bearing members of the MPP, but their actions and their words. You can't be too sure that they are independent.
Wait. While I have posed the question, I must also be fair to them and not allow you to just come and lambast them. I was asking about the electoral process and the things they've put in place. But if you want to target them, personally, you're saying they are card-bearing members of the MPP. Do you have any evidence to adduce to that effect?
I said they are posturing. Makes it look like they are card-bearing members of the MPP. Their speech, the way they speak, and all other things that is attributable to them, makes it look as if they are MPP apparatchiks, even though we expect them to be independent arbiters. And so for me, going forward, it's their deeds and their actions that will make the generality of Ghanaians.
Hello, Maxwell. It appears the connection to Maxwell has been lost. It's been truncated. We'll try to work the connection to get him back so that he can make his point there. But I'd love to hear from you as well. Just shoot me a message via the live stream on Joy News currently. Let me know what you think. In fact, the question simply is, how much confidence, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much confidence do you have in the Electoral Commission to deliver a free and fair election without, too much compromise in 2024? How much faith do you have in the Electoral Commission to deliver a free and fair election, presidential, parliamentary, in 2024? You can shoot me a message via the live stream on Joy News on Facebook. Let me know what your thoughts are. And when we get Maxwell back, I will have him continue on that trajectory. Let me just try once again. Maxwell, can you hear me? All right. We're trying to reconnect with Maxwell. We'll try to get him back, and then we'll take it from there. But the newspapers we have this morning, I'll start from there before we're joined by Maxwell one more time. Protects Constitution by ensuring peaceful and transparent election. That's according to the NCCE. Protect Constitution by ensuring peaceful and transparent election. Of course, we're talking about 2024. That's according to the NCCE. Yesterday, my good friend Kathleen Addy spoke at length on this matter and others. Unsuccessful election petitions should attract sanctions. That's according to Dr. Afari Jan, suggesting that unsuccessful election petitions should attract sanctions. In other words, you shouldn't just come up and put forth a petition and create a certain picture if you know that, in fact, you have lost the election. Constitution Day celebration. Don't overhaul Constitution. Strengthen public institutions. That's according to the Attorney General. I have my different opinions on this matter. GES harmonizes code of conduct for pre-tertiary schools, and ADB shareholders approve 2 billion Ghana cedi capital injection. On the back page, Veterans Court support for members, and Ibuakwa North Assembly supports PWDs with startup items. So let's start from the start. Do we have Maxwell back? If not, I get straight into the papers. All right. So let's start from the start. Constitution Day celebration. Don't overhaul Constitution. Strengthen public institutions. The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Godfrey Diaboadame, has opposed calls for an extensive overhaul of the 1992 Constitution. In an exclusive interview with the Daily Graphic to share his views on whether there was the need for a review of the Constitution as well as the Constitution Day celebration, he described the 1992 Constitution as one of the best in the world that possessed all the elements of a good Constitution. The Constitution, he stressed, had a solid foundation with values and principles that met international standards and had, over the past 31 years, entrenched and promoted democracy, human rights, and constitutionalism in the country. Quoting him, he said, "Our Constitution is quite strong in terms of the establishment of institutions to deliver a sound economic and social life," Mr. Dame said. He further posited that any call for a complete review of the Constitution or a new Constitution ought to be subjected to critical thinking to determine whether the highest law of the land had measured up to international standards or served the country well. Now, as much as I agree with him to a certain extent, maybe a wholesale overhaul of the Constitution might not be in the best interest of the country. But a large portion, I feel, of the Constitution. Look, for example, at the problems we've had with Daniel Yaw-Domelevo. Not we, the people, but this administration had with him, and the impediments that were put in his way. In terms of his work, when you read that section on the Auditor General and his or her powers and everything in between, I mean, it took Domelevo to come and start implementing part of what the law had sanctioned, okay? Surcharging and all of that. Now we see a bit of that with the current Auditor General. You can look at some of the wide powers that are given the president. He's appointing X, Y, Z, A, B, C, everybody. Heads of state-owned institutions. Heads of different agencies. He's appointing the ministers. He's appointing DCEs. He's appointing the head of the IGP. The powers of the president are overweening, overbearing. And I dare say, because power is sweet, like Lord Acton will say, and that's famous aphorism, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. The more power one has, and that is why some people will also say that these powers, both the NDC and the MPP, who have tasted power, would want to retain the Constitution as it is, though I do know that the former President John Dramani Mahama has spoken about, amending the Constitution. And going back to some of the things that in 2010, the Constitutional Review Commission brought to bear, which the white paper of which we poo-pooed, we threw somewhere. It's still gathering dust. But I posit that those who have ruled in this country also want the Constitution to remain the way it is because it favors them. And one crucial example is what I've just spoken about. The wide powers that it gives to a president. It does not make any sense. I'm saying it here and now. It makes no sense to have one person with such wide powers. That is why we keep having a conflict with, is the police service being induced by the executive? Because they are part of the executive arm of government. Is there interference in the work? If we have people who are appointed through other means, then we can rely on them, even if they are partisan or even if they are political. Hopefully they are not partisan. But even if they are political, which every person practically is, they would not be under that pressure to please because you are not the appointor. You are not the appointing authority. Does that not make sense? So while I agree to a certain extent with what Godfred Yeboah-Dame is saying, I also disagree with him to a large extent on some of these. I feel there are so many things in our Constitution that ought to be given a second look, really, to make our country better. Now, finally, he also talks about institutions. I'm just looking for that part. He makes mention of institutions. Our Constitution is quite strong in terms of the establishment of the institutions to deliver a sound economic and social life. I'll go back to what President Barack Hussein Obama said when he was in Ghana. We don't need strong men. We need strong institutions. We are partly where we are because our institutions have failed. Many of them have failed and continue to fail. Because in the United States, let's look at this example. There are presidents who have come all the way from the days of Ronald Reagan and JFK to Trump, who would have wanted to do certain things but couldn't get away with it because of solid, sound institutions. In the last election, when there was that assault on the Capitol, the Capitol building, why is it that, for example, President Trump wanted his own vice, Mike Pence, to signal that he had won the election, yet Mike Pence stuck to the script of the Constitution and went ahead and gave the final, appended a signature so that Joe Biden could be declared winner of the election? That is what you call sound institutions. The institutions work regardless of who is in power. The institutions fetter you. Okay? They bind you. In our country, it's not that way. Institutions don't work. By and large, they don't work. I'll even shudder to say that institutions work to maybe even 45% capacity. They don't. And so I disagree with you, Mr. Dame, on that point. I feel our institutions need a proper overhaul, and that could also come by way of the Constitution. So while I'm not saying all you're saying is baseless, no, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that there are so many things that require a second look in our 1992 Constitution. Desperately. Maxwell Lukuto, welcome back. Hello, Maxwell, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. You were making a brief point on the Electoral Commission. If you could, because we've lost you for a while, we've lost time. So briefly on that, and let me know what your thoughts are about overhauling the 1992 Constitution. Do you think it should be a minimal look or a complete overhaul? Where do you stand on that? On these 2 points, very quickly, Maxwell. Yeah,
I don't think there should be a complete overhaul. There are some few things that we have to look at, like the elders of society have pointed out to some few of them. Afarijan has pointed to some few of them, the constitution, and then the work of the advisory committee to the president. That's the Council of State.
Right.
What they are supposed to be doing, whether they are supposed to be giving report. People spoke about this asset declaration, how it is done, whether it is so transparent that people can walk in there and see what is there and all other things. And even the EC itself, like I was talking about, you said the institutions don't work. Yes, I agree with you. Look at the last limited registration exercise we did. Instead of them taking it to the electoral areas like it used to be, they decided to centralize it at the district headquarters. And the trouble political parties had to go through to get these things done, as if the process was rather for them. And people sit down and behave as if they are doing a favor to somebody. Meanwhile, you are being paid for the job you are doing, and they are laid down rules and responsibilities for you to undertake. But people shudder to do these things, and they behave as if they are a demigod and they are doing you a favor. So for me, the institutions are not working. We need to keep up enthusiasm in that. Look at the way the police service behave as if they are still a police force. They go brutalizing everybody and anybody. Look at the journalist who was attacked in a Jumago or so yesterday over the weekend. A police officer invited him over, wanted to interrogate him, and tasked him to pounce on him and beat him to pulp. And the Minister of Fisheries, Hawa Kumsi, was there. As for her and her stories, I don't want to be talking about.
Yes, but please, let's be careful about that, because the Minister of Fisheries and member of Parliament for the Ewutu Senya East constituency, that is Mavis Hawa Kumsin, has debunked any claims that she was behind the attack. I was actually going to bring up the matter for discussion, but let's be careful how we tread, because she has debunked, unless we have evidence to adduce to that effect, she has debunked any claims that she was behind the attack or that she orchestrated the attack. Please go ahead.
Now, is it about her being behind, or her boys went to beat a journalist?
Well, if her boys do, the suggestion probably would be that she would be in the know. She's saying she was not in the know. She had no hand in it. Until we adduce evidence to that effect.
There is no way I can tell whether she's in the know or not in the know. All I know is that her boys...
precisely so, Maxwell. Precisely because we cannot tell for sure is why I'm just guiding you that you should watch how you go about saying this. But you can go ahead. Go ahead.
And Ben, this is not the first time. This is not the first time we are hearing how Akumsi involved in issues of this nature, shooting discriminately and all these other attacks. So for me, this is not the first time. That's a stock in trade. And so we are only referring to what she used to do or what she's used to doing. So some of these things, let's watch them and bring people to where they belong. People behave as if they are above the Constitution. And so for me, let us look at these things critically and see how we can review some of the institutions we have and what they are supposed to be giving to us as way of service. Yeah, so I agree that the institutions should be looked at, part of the Constitution should be reviewed, looked at critically. It's over a long time that we have been talking about whether this should be reviewed or not reviewed. And a lot of proponents say that there are aspects of it that we will have to take a real look at. For instance, the percentage of ministers that has to be appointed from Parliament, whether they are supposed to be a check on government or they are supposed to be collaborators with government, is another matter that people keep talking about. And the earlier we look at these things, the better it will work for the good for Ghana. If not, we'll just be musical chairs dancing around the problem and not nailing it to the core. So for me, yes, it's time we have to do it.
All right. Interestingly, though, it is, of course, that had to do with the parliamentary primaries of the MPP. It is her own contemporaries or those contesting her who made the allegation that it was her people who were behind this assault. Of course, they would still have to come and prove that assault on Mr. David Kobina. And what was meted out to him, he was slapped many times, pummeled, kicked repeatedly in the abdomen, ribs and chest, as well as the belly by irate supporters who numbered more than 8. We've heard the GJA president speak to the issues, and I believe it is high time the MPP did more rather than just release statements, the information minister among others. And even at some point, we've had cause to be dissatisfied with some of the statements from the information ministry. But these kinds of assaults, we've entered an electoral year. It's only January and we've started assaulting journalists. We need to put our foot down and not decry it later in the year when our metrics fall when it comes to freedom of speech, when it comes to human rights, when it comes to, the practice of journalism, among others. Then people will say, oh, we're not being treated fairly. It is January and we've already started assaulting journalists. So the talk, we can talk. But how about the walk? How about ensuring the safety? Just a few months ago, someone was sitting in a station, UTV, remember, a full-scale attack because supposedly some political elements from the MPP side felt, someone A+ among others were, when will we get it in our heads that this is a civil issue? If you feel a journalist has done anything, there are court procedures. You can take them through. If you feel you've been, slandered, defamed, whatever it may be, there are processes. Why not go through them? And I feel the media houses should also become more strong when it comes to security so that if such thugs come around and they themselves get a beating, maybe they will think twice. I'm not fostering violence, but if these people feel over time, we've had some of them we've had even people of the cloth, so-called pastors, lead teams to go to radio stations, TV stations, armed men. When will it stop? When will the nonsense stop?
Yeah, so like I'm saying, let's make our institutions work. How Akumsi admitted to making a shootout one point in her life when she went to her constituency and there was some kind of riot. What happened to her? She was let loose. Nothing happened to her. 8 people were killed during our 2020 election. Up to now, the president has not coughed. He has not said anything about it. What happened to the police officers and the military people who were engaged in the shooting and the killing of innocent citizens just because of an election? So for me, these things are becoming one too many. And for me, the David issue, a police officer invited you out to have a word with you. All of a sudden, people came to beat him to pulp. And nobody would say anything, nobody would take any action. What kind of society are we building for ourselves? Just because it is our Kumsi or something about her. Because she was discussed on radio, for which reason she has to go looking for wherever made a discussion about her to beat or whatever. It's becoming nauseating to listen to these stories every day, and it's becoming so bad. Nana Addo should put his feet down and make sure that the Ghana that was handed over to him, he keeps it safe and sound to hand over to somebody else. January 2025. It's becoming one too many.
Let me acknowledge a few of those who have sent in comments. Sejifa Stephen Sito says, good morning to Honorable Maxwell Lukuto. You're calling him Honorable already. I'm not one for titles, but anyway, it's fine. Always refreshing listening to his analysis. Nanasafu Kantanka says, good morning, Ben. I'm watching you live from Asante Mampon. Tell Maxwell Lukuto that he should wake up from his slumber if he dreams that JDM is coming back. JDM never again to the Jubilee House. That's what Nanasafu Kantanka says. Wosobo Tanko says, for the Ghana EC, I'll grade them 2 out of 10 in terms of confidence in them. This one says, King Harrison Sr. says, good morning. I'm Harrison from Asamankesi. The NDC should leave the EC at the moment and focus on their campaign message. If it is that they will win the election, the EC can never block them. All right. So those are some messages that have been sent through. Let's wrap with a daily graphic on these 3 stories very quickly. I'll take all of them and get your quick reactions, Maxwell. Judgment must lead to orderly development of nation. President to judges. And, okay, no, that's not the story I wanted to do. Protect Constitution by ensuring peaceful, transparent election. That's actually the first one I wanted to do. The National Commission for Civic Education has called on the citizens to protect the 1992 Constitution by playing active roles to ensure that this year's elections are free, fair, transparent, and devoid of violence. The chairperson of the commission, Kathleen Addy, who made the call, said the December 7, 2024 polls were an opportunity for the people to once more demonstrate political maturity to consolidate the nation's democracy. Quoting her, she says, the upcoming election should not break Ghana, it should make Ghana. The 2024 election is a test case for tribal, ethnic, and religious tolerance in the country, and politicians must learn to stay within the agenda of peace and tolerance as well as patriotism, she added. Then, let's uphold nation's democracy. John Mahama says so, of course, tied to that bit about the elections. But then there is this one. Dr. Afari-Jan, former Electoral Commission chair. Unsuccessful election petition should attract sanctions. Now, a former chairman of the Electoral Commission, Dr. Kwejo Afari-Jan, has suggested that electoral petitions that did not succeed should attract sanctions. And we've seen the MPP and the NDC not succeed with some of these petitions. That, he said, was to prevent election petitions from becoming a wanton fashion. He said it appeared that some candidates rushed to the court with election petitions alleging manipulation of results, primarily to placate their financiers and supporters. We know the story to that. And finally, debt overhang cause of poor economic growth. That's according to Dr. Richmond Echiahene. We all know him, a banking expert, and he's saying that because of our debt overhang, it's going to affect economic growth. And we've borrowed and borrowed and borrowed. Little surprise. So those stories, protect Constitution by ensuring peaceful, transparent election. Then there's also, if you petition and you don't win, it should attract sanctions for the political parties and our economy as well. Any quick thoughts there, Maxwell?
Yeah, sure. So Afari-Jan has always been on point. I would agree and disagree with him on the point of sanctions. We are looking at the other angle of it, where people are stifled from going ahead to go and seek redress in the cause, and they would rather want to take to violence on the streets and other things. I am sure that in the bid to curb some of these things is the reason why we have allowed the court to look into these matters. Of course, I don't know what level of sanction he may be asking for. Yes, I agree with him to a large extent that if you don't put in some sanctions, people can just wake up any day, any time, and go to court on election petitions, and they will go without serious cases but just want to disturb the system. Yes. So let's look at both ends of it and not put too much impediment on the way of people who feel aggrieved in one way or the other to want to test whatever it is in the court of law. So both ways, let's look at it and be sure that we don't get to the other side of it where violence would rather be what people prefer to want to undertake. Yeah, so the peace and tolerance that we need for Ghana going to the 2024 election is very paramount. That is why we all should watch the way we speak and the way we address the public about the things that we expect. I was blatantly disappointed in the defense minister when he was talking to his constituents some few days ago about a colleague who was, I think, disqualified from contesting him, and he was making some spurious comments saying that he's going to treat him the way he would treat NDC in the 2024 election. Some of those statements, people can read meanings into it. You, the defense minister, and you are talking just like that without any decorum and things like that. I think that people are becoming too pompous and they should be brought to where they belong. Who is Honorable Nitiwu? We all know him. His student days in, I think, Winneba, becoming an MP, changing to MPP and all those things. And because he's been made Minister for Defense for 8 years, he has all that bravado to talk as if all Ghanaians are under his feet. Some of these things, I think we should watch them. Because, of course, we in the NDC, we can also talk tough. And if he's only saying those things to put some level of fear in us, then he should be told that he's talking to the wrong group of people. Because we are a fearless group of people and will meet anybody at any point in time if that is what they think they want to bring on board. But for me, we are people of peace who speak the peace language, but people should be told when they cross the line that they can't continue to speak the way they speak because today there is some position of power. Yeah, no, some of those things should be condemned. And for me, let's begin to speak and condemn some of these things that come from ministers of state who we think. And the position of Minister of Defense is not a position for children. Yes, people have complained about him and whether he really qualifies to be there. He's been there for the past 7 or so years. So he should have overgrown the kind of youthful exuberance I saw him display the other day. So for me, let's talk to some of these people and make sure that we leave them in the back. As for our debts, nobody wants to talk about them again. It is weighing on our necks so heavily that we can't even breathe. It's not giving us any space to do anything, but we have to think outside the box. Yes, we are in an election year. I'm not too sure what other things we are going to expect, but the Nanado and the Baumia that we know over the years, I'm sure that they are still going to push things to want to break the so-called 8 they think they can break. They are breaking themselves at 8. It is clear, it is glaring. Every research and analysis shows that they are losing. But I'm sure that they are going to throw in their last by wanting to do more damage to the economy. But let all Ghanaians speak and say that this is the only Ghana we have. If they push us too much into debt, it will be so difficult for us to come out. So they should be measured in the things they do in this election year.
Right.
So that at the end of this year, they would hand over a peaceful and one piece Ghana to John Dramani Mahama come next year.
Okay, all right. Let's conclude with these stories. I'll do the Daily Guide and then the Economy Times. Then we can go. I am the masked man, Nakwame Bediako, a.k.a. Cheddar, or Freedom Jacob Caesar, says. Feather for IGP Dampare, my colleague in the media, Kwame Adinkra, says so. Of course, we saw police prominence. We've seen it throughout this Yuletide. Even now, even recently, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, yes, 2 days ago, in many areas, you would see the police pretty prominent. So when they do things like this, yes, we support them. But when things like what happened at the Independence Square, where you've given someone permission to host an event, and then for whatever reason you say there's another event and no event happens, then those ones, we have cause to bash them. But there are also these stories. Support state-owned enterprises. ICU Ghana appeals. The Industrial and Commercial Workers Union has appealed to social partners, especially the government, to support state-owned enterprises. And then ride-hailing companies to pay taxes. Ride-hailing companies such as Uber, Yango, and Bolt will be required to pay taxes in Ghana starting from January 2024. The Ghana Revenue Authority making the announcement highlighted the obligation for commercial vehicle owners to pay income tax on a quarterly basis as per Section 22 of Regulations 2016 LI 2244. And that is that. I guess we'll be paying taxes till we're into the ground and beyond. Economy Times, banks to unlock credit to private sector, local rice farmers record low patronage, and Mahama to restore Ghana's economy. You can pick about two of these and reflect quickly on them in less than a minute, Maxwell. We have to go.
It is about the overtaxing that you spoke about. We are being taxed till we get to the grave, and it's becoming one too many. These are the very people who said that they are going to move from taxation to production. I don't know what they are producing. The one factory, the one district, one factory that they touted that they're going to build and all over the country, I don't know what is happening to them. Every day, one task or the other, the bed task, the boat task, everybody. Very soon, I'm sure they are going to task us for briefing. And it's becoming one too many. This group of people are just talkers. They are not doers. So he spoke as if he was a messiah. He came to government and he has poorly performed. Nothing to show.
Right.
And he's going again for presidency. It's a shame. Now, this local rice farm, it's unfortunate that we still do a lot of import of rice. Meanwhile, there's so much glut in the rice, and then we can't even get people to buy.
But even under the NDC, you were still importing rice. You know that.
Oh yeah, we're importing rice, but what quantities were you importing? It's about.
So you can talk about quantity, but not necessarily that. We were importing rice under the NDC.
No, but my brother, I believe that at no point can we say that we are going to completely stop importing anything. There are times that we would import something because of the other issues that we all know about. We may not be able to immediately say that we have raised the capacity of our farmers to meet our demand for rice. Right. But of course, it's because we are not cutting down on some of this import. That is why their productions are not.
We have to go. Our time is up. We really have to go. But I'm grateful that you joined the conversation as always. It's always refreshing having you. Maxwell Lokotor is the NDC's parliamentary candidate for South Tong, and he joined the conversation. Now, right before we go, let me acknowledge Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Make your way to any of their branches here in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji Estate, there's Tema Community 22, there's Tichiman Hanswa, and the Siamanzama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports is up next with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.